Welcome back, everyone. Big moves happening in Germany right now, and the whole world is paying attention. The German government just reached a full agreement on something that's going to shake things up. Ukrainian refugees arriving in Germany after April 1st, 2025 will no longer receive Bürgergeld. That's the benefit meant for job seekers or people whose income isn't enough to support themselves. Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt and Federal Minister of Labour and Social Affairs Bärbel Bass finally hammered out this regulation. So here's what it means. All Ukrainians who come to Germany after April 1st will now be treated as asylum seekers, and they'll be getting smaller payments. According to the authorities, there are currently about 1.1 million Ukrainians living in Germany, but only a relatively small portion of them actually have jobs. Politicians are hoping these new rules will motivate more people to find work. Now here's where it gets interesting. At the exact same time, we're hearing that in 2026, the German government is planning to increase aid to Ukraine to more than 11.5 billion euros. This is laid out in a draft from Germany's finance ministry for the 2026 budget. And these funds, Germany plans to spend specifically on military assistance. The government says it continues to trust Ukraine but will be closely monitoring how events unfold. I used to be inside one of those big, well-known media organizations, saw firsthand how the facts got bent to serve the agenda, and I decided to walk away. Now I work for myself, I answer to no one, and I bring you what actually matters. If this kind of honest breakdown is something you value, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to support independent journalism that doesn't bow to corporate pressure, consider becoming a channel sponsor. It makes a real difference, and it keeps this work possible. Now, let's keep going because there's more happening in Germany. The ruling coalition just agreed on a reform of military service. This compromise solution involves conducting universal medical examinations to determine fitness for military duty. Right now, the ruling coalition has agreed to bring back mandatory medical evaluations for all men when they turn 18. The first group affected by this reform will be men born in 2008, who will be subject to mandatory medical screening. Every young man will receive a questionnaire titled Interest in Service, Yes or No. Answering this question is mandatory for men. Women will also get the questionnaire, but only so the Bundeswehr knows who they can count on in case full universal conscription is restored. Women can choose whether to respond or not. If there aren't enough volunteers, the Bundestag will be able to activate a mandatory draft mechanism, which includes a lottery system. The term of service in Germany is 6 months, 3 of which are dedicated to basic training. At the same time, Parliament is demanding that Defense Minister Boris Pistorius present a concrete plan for growing the military. The document states that Germany needs to reach 260,000 active duty soldiers and 200,000 reservists, and the Defense Department will report results every 6 months. And to incentivize army recruitment, authorities are ready to pay volunteers around 2,600 euros per month. Those who sign contracts longer than 12 months will get the status of contract soldier and will receive salaries equivalent to professional military personnel. So we're watching closely to see if they'll be able to recruit the necessary numbers or not. Time will tell, as they say. But hold on, because Germany is also dealing with another serious issue, and they're not hiding their concern. In fact, they're very openly worried. Germany has recorded its highest number of bird flu outbreaks this year in the last 3 years, and unfortunately, there's no relief in sight. The spread of highly pathogenic strains is causing concern for both the government and the poultry industry because of devastating consequences, first of all for birds, the possibility of trade restrictions being imposed, and the risk of a new pandemic. That's exactly how it's being reported. Experts say the number of cases among wild birds has also increased significantly, and relief is not expected. According to specialists, the current risk level is high. That's how it's being explained to everyone. We'll see what happens next. Meanwhile, in the beautiful German city of Magdeburg, authorities are planning to hold a Christmas market despite possible threats. Officials in Magdeburg are planning to maximize security measures for this year's Christmas market so it can take place despite concerns. After last year's tragedy, a warning was issued. The city's mayor didn't specify exactly what security measures are being discussed. For those who forgot, let me remind you, on December 20th last year, a terrible incident occurred in Magdeburg. A man in a BMW drove into a crowd at the Christmas market. Tragically, 6 people lost their lives and hundreds were injured. The trial is ongoing now, and I'll report back once a verdict is reached. But we all believe that everything will be better this time, and we wish everyone the very best. It can't be any other way. If you're finding value in this breakdown, do me a favor, drop a comment below with your thoughts, hit that subscribe button, and share this with someone who needs to hear what's really happening. Let's keep this conversation going. Now let's talk about new reports of protests in Europe. A massive rally against austerity measures took place in Romania. The change of president didn't deliver the expected results, as you probably figured out. As you know, the Romanian diaspora abroad made their choice, and now things are only getting worse. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning. Thousands of demonstrators marched through Bucharest demanding wage increases, measures to curb inflation, and tax reductions for workers. Meanwhile, the government continues its austerity policy to address the country's large budget deficit. Protesters honked horns, banged drums, and some even held signs that read, "We want decent wages." The government measures, I should point out, include raising taxes, freezing wages and pensions in the public sector, as well as cutting government spending and jobs in government administration. The rally was organized by the National Trade Union Bloc, and the union even announced that the impoverishment of Romania's population has now become state policy. That's quite a turn of events. And here's something else. Poland has officially asked the European Commission to completely exempt it from obligations under the solidarity mechanism provided by the EU Migration Pact, citing the country's special situation. The reason for not accepting migrants and not paying 20,000 euros for each one not accepted is stated as follows. Poland is paying a high price protecting the European Union's borders and is under migration pressure from Belarus while accepting refugees from Ukraine. Although for some reason they didn't mention that most of the Ukrainians, they accepted work in unpopular jobs, and many worked 12-hour days. The Czech Republic, Poland, and Estonia are now in the top spots in the European Union for the number of Ukrainians accepted with temporary protection relative to their own population. Also in Poland, President Andrzej Duda very harshly criticized Prime Minister Donald Tusk, calling him the worst head of government since 1989. This isn't the first time, I should note, that the President and Prime Minister of Poland have publicly clashed in full view of everyone. Gradually, people are starting to get used to such statements, which is obviously not normal, but most likely there won't be any agreement between Poland's President and Prime Minister. Now let's move to fresh reports from the United States. President Donald Trump signed emergency legislation that officially ended a 45-day shutdown, the longest in U.S. history. The signature came after the House of Representatives approved the document, 222 votes to 209. Interestingly, 6 Democrats supported the Republicans, which is surprising under the new law. Funding for federal agencies is extended until January 30th of next year, and government operations resume immediately. All furloughed employees will be reinstated, and those who worked without pay, including air traffic controllers who recently caused chaos at airports, will be paid in one lump sum. The law also provides for the resumption of food assistance for millions of low-income Americans, and there are quite a few of them, 42 million low-income individuals. Here's something to keep your attention. We're about to dive into what the U.S. is doing on the energy front, and trust me, it connects to everything we've been talking about. Stay with me. In December, the Senate will have to vote separately on extending health insurance subsidies, which is actually what sparked the budget crisis in the first place. Well, at least that's the excuse they found. So we're watching to see what happens next. The intrigue continues. Now, U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, speaking at a summit in Athens, announced that representatives from 16 countries met at the event with the goal of eliminating dependence on Russian energy resources and replacing them with American energy. As the U.S. Energy Secretary particularly emphasized, Washington is the largest, most reliable energy supplier in the world, the ideal geopolitical partner for Europe and global allies. Absolutely, there is no better energy supplier on the planet than the United States. That's how proudly Wright boasted and emphasized. Basically, the states have already achieved their goal, as you can see. So those are the key information points for today, and they speak volumes. Let me quickly recap what we covered. Germany is cutting benefits for new Ukrainian refugees while simultaneously increasing military aid to Ukraine and reinstating mandatory military service evaluations. Romania is seeing mass protests against brutal austerity measures. Poland wants out of EU migration obligations while its president and prime minister are at each other's throats. The US just ended its longest government shutdown in history, and American officials are openly celebrating their success in replacing Russian energy in Europe. It's all connected, it's all moving in a very specific direction, attention, and it's all happening right now. Write your opinion in the comments. Tell me what you think about everything that's going on. If this kind of analysis matters to you, don't just watch and leave. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and seriously consider becoming a sponsor. This is how independent voices survive. This is how we keep bringing you the truth without corporate filters or editorial interference. Your support makes this possible. I wish you peaceful skies, and I'll see you tomorrow. And may the news always be good. Take care of yourselves.